Be in the know with unlimited access to IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. Our in-depth coverage of all things business means you'll always be completely in the know. Subscribe for just $1 a week. Get started now at ibj.com/trial offer.
When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy, focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
Do what you say you're going to do. There's a lot of people who will make comments or promises, and they never send the email or the follow-up call, and you might be surprised what happens if you did.
Hi, I'm Dave Neff, host of Talent Scout. On this show, we shine a light on Indiana's next generation of leaders who are making a difference in business, community, and civic life. These are real conversations about purpose, mentorship, and building a future that matters. Join me as we invest in leadership that lasts. Welcome back to another episode of Talent Scout. Today, my guest is Maggie Cunningham. Maggie, thank you for being here. Maggie and I met, I want to say in 2020, right? Through the Morris series, the James T. Morris series at the International Center. Right. Which was a great experience, and have stayed connected over the last 5 years here and there. But you've got a great story, and you're currently serving as the Director of Air Service and Airport Experience for the Indianapolis Airport Authority. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, you're a transplant. You're not from Indy. You moved here about a decade ago, so we want to get into that story. But you grew up in Texas. Tell us where you grew up. What was your childhood like, your family, just what was life like in the part of Texas that you grew up in?
It was really hot. We'll start there. It was super hot.
Like it is right now.
It is, yes. The way it feels outside right now in July is the way it feels in Texas in October. But I was really lucky. I grew up just outside Houston in Pearland, Texas. And my parents raised us pretty slow, which was nice. They were a little bit older. We got to just be kids, and that was we were really lucky for that.
How many siblings?
I am the oldest, which won't surprise anyone, but I have a brother and a sister.
Okay,
and we're now all over the place, all over the world. But yeah, Pearland was a great place to grow up. It was very safe. Got to do a lot of things. Played sports. Was in musicals. Got to learn. And then I left and never went back.
Yeah.
For college. So, but it was a great place to grow up. My mom was an attorney. My dad built a company with his brother, a scoreboard company, and sports is king in Texas.
Oh, yeah. Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights, exactly. They worked hard. And my mom, after a couple years with me and my brother, decided to stop working as an attorney and take on, as your wife knows, one of the hardest jobs is being a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really lucky for that.
Wow. So, so a pretty charming childhood, it sounds like, and Pearland, Texas, and then you go to Georgetown, Texas, right, for college at Southwestern University. How far away was that from where you grew up? How did you land on Southwestern? Maybe tell us a little bit about Southwestern University for those that don't know the school.
I would love to. Southwestern is a very small school. If Pearland is just outside of Houston, Georgetown is just outside of Austin. So it's about 200 miles, about a 3-hour drive. Pretty easy. Southwestern is the oldest university in Texas, small liberal arts school. The time I was there, we were in the SCAC, Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, which some people may recognize. DePaul also was in the SCAC. And so that was my only tie to Indiana before I moved here. I recognized the banner from the gym. It was great. It was, I didn't know what a liberal arts school meant, but I do now after going there and enjoying it.
What made you choose to go there for school?
I went to a huge high school. I graduated with 1,000 kids, and that was great. A lot of different lives to experience and people to experience. And I wanted a smaller collegiate experience. And I got that. I graduated with 30 people in December from Southwestern University. So there were some there was a little bit of a culture shock going from that big of a school to that small of a school, but I'm grateful for the friendships I made and the experiences that I had.
Yeah. What'd you study at Southwestern University?
I studied economics.
Okay.
I wanted a little more math than I thought I would get in business, but at the end of the day, it's a liberal arts economics degree, and I took a ballet class as part of my economics degree, so pretty well-rounded. Actually, the ballet class was the hardest class that I took.
Now, I think you told me at one point, Georgetown, Texas, where Southwestern is the retirement capital of Texas.
Yes.
So it wasn't exactly Bloomington or one of these, sort of college towns that has a lot going, or was it? Did it have a lot, just more for an older demographic?
Oh, the Whataburger was open pretty late. No, it was the retirement capital of Texas.
Okay.
I think it's since, with the growth of Austin and Central Texas, it has since gotten a little livelier. Yeah. But it was a safe place to be. It was a nice community, and Austin was never very far away if you wanted some of that nightlife or energy. But it was a nice place, and really, I think, for me, helped me settle in out of high school. And they didn't have a football team at the time, so we weren't thinking about sports on the weekend. But they have a football team now, and Southwestern's really grown. So I'm proud of the school. I'm a proud alumni, and grateful for the experience I had.
So you're on the outskirts of Austin, going to school. Was the dream to, hey, when I graduate college, I want to get a job in Austin and start my career here? Talk to us about, because I believe your first job close to your first job out of school was working for the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce. So what was sort of your game plan to post-college, and how did that come to be?
Well, I think, like all good liberal arts students, I thought I would go to law school. And I took the LSAT 3 times, and it just was a terrible experience. And maybe that's what people say about the LSAT in general, but I just hated it. I'm not a good standardized tester, and it was really tough for me. So I said, well, I better find something else. And then I started doing a little bit of networking. I found a great mentor who started introducing me to people in the professional world. I didn't have my sights set on Austin. And, I think as a college student, and may even be the case here, you're not always aware about what's right in your backyard. Mm-hmm. So Austin hadn't really been on my radar as a place I wanted to live and work. But the more I got to know the city and the more I learned about economic development, it quickly became my dream job. And I might be the only 22-year-old whose dream job was to be in economic development, but that was the case. And I was hell-bent on getting into economic development somewhere in Central Texas.
Tell us how that came to be. Did you just blindly apply? Did you have a connection or a relationship at the Austin Chamber? What did that look like, getting in your foot in the door there?
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. There are only so many people who do proper economic development in a city and in a region. So I did a lot of networking, meeting with people who did the work, trying to better understand the work, asking the question, hey, is there anybody you could introduce me to? I'm really into this. And finally, I got an interview, asked one of the people I had met through the 6 months of networking I had done, hey, would you mind putting in a good word for me? And then what I think really did it, I really clicked with the woman who I was interviewing with, but I also wore a bright pink blazer to the second interview. And I think that may have won me the job.
Yeah. Okay. So you spent how long? 3 years with the Austin Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah. About 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
What was a highlight or two from your time there?
It was incredible. Austin was the fastest growing city in the United States. I got to learn from the best economic developers in the world. I got to learn about industries I had never experienced before: life sciences, clean tech, power technologies, manufacturing. I mean, all of a sudden you have to be an expert in all of those things, and I didn't know about any of it. That was really neat. I think the most memorable thing was getting to work with the airport to pursue a flight to Europe, which would have been Austin's first flight to Europe. And eventually we secured that flight from Austin to London.
Wow.
And then my phone started ringing. Companies from Europe, not just London, wanted to come open up shop in Austin because this flight was enabling them to go in between much easier. So that's when things started clicking for me about air service development is economic development.
Now, did you ever see yourself leaving Texas, or did you think, hey, I'm going to be, a Texas girl to the day I die? Talk to us about, I think it was around 2015 when the Indianapolis International Airport maybe came calling, or how you got connected. Just, what was your thought process on sort of your future then in your mid-20s working at the Austin Chamber?
I was ready for a change. Yeah, I was ready for a change personally. I still love Austin. I'm going there this weekend on a nonstop flight. But I was ready to go. It was becoming harder and harder for me to authentically sell a city when I was seeing and hearing things that were keeping me from selling this city. The investments in infrastructure, again, this is just my opinion, we weren't making the investments in infrastructure as a city and as a region we needed to accommodate the population doubling in growth every 10 years. I mean, that was huge. That was huge growth, and it became really, really hard. There's a lot of friction between communities that were welcoming growth and communities that didn't want growth. And candidly, I can see both sides. But at the end of the day, my job was to recruit more jobs and help grow the economy and investment. And people have to move to your city to do that.
Yeah.
So I was ready to go. I didn't know I would leave Texas, but I was open to the idea. And when I set my sights on air service development, then the options for doing that job, again, like economic development, become very, very limited. There's only so many airports, and there's only so many airports who have people who are dedicated to air service development. And most of those airports were not in Texas. So the search widened real quickly.
So air service development, for those that don't know, maybe break down what exactly that entails.
Air service development is essentially business development or sales for an airport. Our team is responsible for getting more nonstop flights and also retaining the ones that we have, making sure the flights that we have are performing well, communicating with the airline to understand their larger strategy, how a market like Indianapolis fits into their larger global strategy. But it boils down to, and the fun and the headlines is getting more nonstop flights.
Yeah, more nonstop flights. Okay, so you're starting to realize, okay, maybe there's some, despite all the great things about Austin, lack of investment of infrastructure, you're at that sort of, I think when I was 26, I was working for the Pacers and going to Exact Target, but I sort of had this yearning from growing up in Indy to move away. I didn't, and that's a whole nother story, but you kind of had that mid-20s sort of, I think I'm ready for maybe a new, challenge or a new opportunity. Tell us how, out of all the airports, Indianapolis International hit your radar.
Well, it's the best.
Obviously.
It's the best one. They were hiring, and they were hiring for a job, for an air service role. I applied to a lot of air service jobs, and it was really hard because I didn't have any formal airport experience. But I had a great mentor who was retired and had moved to Austin and had joined my airport committee that I was managing at the time. So I had access to this person, and he was kind enough to sit down with me, and I was just honest with him. I said, Jeff, I want to get into aviation. I got bit by the bug. That's what we say. Like, if you get bit, you're in, and you can't get it out of your system. And that resonated with him. And so he helped me position my experience so that I could get a job, that I would get an interview.
Yeah.
And then he even went so far, the same way that somebody helped put in a good word for me to get an interview at the Austin Chamber, he was kind enough to call his friend in Indianapolis and say, hey, I think you should interview her and see where it goes. And the woman he called is still my boss today.
Wow. And what's her name?
Her name is Marcia Worster.
Yeah.
And she has knew Jeff Fagan for a long time, and Jeff had run the DFW airport. And I'm really, without that phone call, I probably don't get an interview. My resume likely wouldn't have made it past the screening just based on my experience and what they were looking for. And I understand that, but I also knew that I was really capable of doing the job and could do it from an economic development stance. I knew everything about I had great experience in economic development. There's always more to learn. I just needed to finesse the air service piece. And Marcia was willing to take that on.
Yeah. Well, that's a great, I feel like, lesson for, younger folks of when you're looking to make a move, whether it's your first job or your third or fourth job. I always try to encourage young people. Some of them will say, well, I'm applying for jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn or just blindly kind of uploading. And that's great. Maybe you get lucky and you get a call back and it leads to something, but you cut the line when you have a relationship and somebody doesn't mean you're going to be automatically handed the job. But the fact that Jeff knew Marcia kind of got your foot in the door, you had to go still earn it and interview, but sort of got you a seat at the table. Right. And, the power of just relationships, especially when it comes to your career and being able to kind of get a little bit of maybe a jump on an opportunity is just invaluable.
I don't know how anybody gets a job any other way. Like how many jobs have you applied to without somebody saying, hey, this is worth your conversation? I don't know how that works. Yeah. It's never worked for me. Yeah. I always blame my liberal arts degree though.
Yeah. Okay, so you're Marcia. You're talking to Marcia. She offers you this job in Indianapolis. What do you know about Indy a decade ago?
Oh man, I was one of those people. So I'm a huge race fan now. Okay. But I was one of those people who was like, Indy 500. Okay, is that NASCAR? What is that? And it probably snows there, so am I going to have to get new tires and a new car? Like, that's all I was thinking about, because I was going to move in January. Yeah. I was moving by myself. I moved above a grocery store because I was just afraid I wouldn't be able to drive anywhere, and I didn't want to starve. I had to get a whole new wardrobe, all these coats. I didn't know anything. Yeah. Yeah, it was really, really
So Indy
ignorant.
500 and snow was kind of what you thought of Indy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, we don't get as much snow as I feel like we used to, but that's fair. I think I've heard people, I think this was a study done that Indy 500 and Notre Dame are like, if you go internationally, those are like the two things that people think of when they think of, Indiana. Thanks for joining us here on Talent Scout. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, so stay tuned. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls. The message blends in, the site stops converting, pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. So you move here, you're in this new role. You've talked a little bit about, what air service development is, how it's interconnected with economic development. Maybe go a little bit deeper there of just why is it so important for places like the Indianapolis International Airport to have more direct flights? And is there a strategy of like, hey, we just want to have more, we don't really care to where they're at? Or no, you want them to be qualitative and to the right, destinations, both domestically, and then we'll get into maybe some of the international direct flights, which I know you've worked closely on.
I think that air service connectivity is an enabler of economic development and talent recruitment. So when I moved to Indy, there was not a nonstop flight to Austin. So you can imagine how motivated I was to get one. And we soon did, not because I wanted to go, but because Austin was a growing place and the demand to Austin from Indianapolis and from central Indiana was growing. So
how did those conversations jump? Like, I'd love to just like drill down of like, through your guys' research, you identify Austin, some other markets. Let's say,
Mhm.
we've talked about Traverse City in a prior conversation, just maybe some smaller markets. Like, who's at the table? Are you talking to the mayor, the local chamber, the local airport? Like, who are the stakeholders that are, really saying, okay, both from Indy side of things as well as the desired destination?
Right. It all starts before that. It all starts with data. We have access to data that tells us how many people go from Indianapolis to any airport in the world. And we build our development strategy based on those numbers. What would you guess is the top market from Indianapolis?
The final destination.
Final destination.
Okay.
What is the number one place people go to from Indianapolis?
I'm gonna
You've
guess.
got kids.
I'm gonna guess somewhere in Florida.
Yes. Great guess.
If I had to pick an airport in Florida, Fort Myers.
Very close.
Okay.
Very close. Think more like ears.
Oh, Orlando. Yeah,
Orlando.
Yeah. Okay.
Orlando.
All right. That's the number one.
That is the number one place people go from the Indianapolis airport.
Wow. Fascinating.
To. What's great about our demand to Florida is that we can, over time, we've been able to put a bunch of seats into Florida, and demand just continues to what we call digest that demand. So
it starts with data.
It's a win-win.
You're looking at, okay, we've got a lot of people that end up in Albuquerque, right? We don't have a direct flight to Albuquerque. I'm making this up. So you identify sort of a heat map of like, let's work on a direct flight to these three markets.
Right.
You've got your data, then what?
Okay, so you take that heat map's a great example. So you take that heat map and you overlay it with an airline strategy. And where there's overlap, that's where you push.
Like, we're going to go to Delta or Southwest. Is that what you mean when you say an airline strategy?
That's right.
Okay.
Let's say Denver. Let's say we did flights to Denver. Okay, well, we've got, however many people a day, 250 people a day that go to Denver. And then we would say, okay, who is the airline that would reasonably fly to Denver within their network strategy? Well, there's multiple, right? Based on hub strategies, based on where people are headquartered, based on where airlines fly. And so then we would isolate those three airlines, and then we would pursue preliminary conversations just between the airport and the airline and say, hey, are you seeing the same data we are? What's going on? Then we advance the conversation, and this is over years.
Yeah.
Then we advance the conversation. Hey, do you have a plane to even do this? Is this in your long-term strategy? Medium-term, long-term, how's that fit? And then when you get closer, you start to have to define the data. So if there's 100 people, the airline and I both know there's 100 people, but they don't know why people are going and what for and who these people are. So then it becomes our job. We have to then turn around to the community, exactly like you've already articulated, and say, okay, who's going to Denver?
Yeah.
And why are you going? And then we bring the groups together, and then we educate the airline. Oh, people are going to Denver for this reason. It's a business reason. And oh, by the way, there's a new plant being built in Denver by a company who's headquartered here. And so that number that you see today is going to grow.
Yeah.
Oh, then the eyes start getting big.
Yeah.
Oh, and they fly business class, right? And so then like, whoa, this is becoming juicier and juicier. And so at the end of the day, our job is to make the Indianapolis opportunity look the best in comparison to anywhere else, not just to Denver, anywhere else that plane could fly in the whole world.
Yeah.
So it's a tough gig. That's why the relationship with the community is so important. It comes in maybe that last 25% of the conversation, but it is the only way to do this work effectively and get something across the finish line.
It's fascinating. So how many direct flights does the Indianapolis International Airport have?
Right now, you can get on a plane in Indy and go to 53 different destinations.
What was it a decade ago?
A decade ago, it was less.
Yeah.
A decade ago, I think we were probably closer to in the 40s.
Yeah.
Today, it's the most connectivity. It's the most nonstop operating flights we've ever had.
Yeah. Well, it's it's so true. I mean, I had some friends that I didn't go, but some friends that went to Oklahoma City for the NBA finals.
Yes.
And everyone was complaining about it's such a hard place to get to. You know, you have to go through Chicago or what have you. And so I don't know how many direct flights OKC has. I'm sure we have more. But it's really just critical, the work that you're doing. And talk to us now, I think a little bit. We've talked, so 53 direct. Only one of those is international currently?
We have a few that are international. So we have Mexico, we have Cancun, we have Toronto, and then of course we have our transatlantic flight to Dublin.
Transatlantic, yep. Okay, so
and we'll add Punta Cana at the end of the year. Sorry.
Nice. Okay, so we'll have 4 by the end of the year. Now, whether it's domestic or international, what are some of the like KPIs that you look for of like, hey, we want 80% of the planes to be full? Is it 90%? Like, what, break down the metrics of, and I'm sure it comes down to, hey, this flight's only going once a week versus 3 times a week versus 5 times a week or daily. Like, could you share, kind of pull back the curtain a little bit of like, what are some of those metrics that you could kind of determine like, hey, this flight's performing really well or it's not?
Yes, I can. I would love to, Dave. Thank you for asking. I think it's important to remember, though, air service development, our job is to serve our community. That is the ethos of the Indianapolis Airport, from Mario Rodriguez to the person who is cleaning the terminal. And that's what makes us really good. So from an air service side, I want to make sure that our community can get to the places that they need to go in the most efficient way. The way to do that is to work with an airline and convince them that they can make a lot of money doing that same thing, right? So it's 2 different conversations. You've got to be able to almost code switch in between.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's the airline's performance metrics against every other route, again, everywhere else that they could put that aircraft.
Yeah.
So they're looking at what we call load factors, how many people are on the plane. They're looking at yield, how much money are they making. They're looking at how important is this to their corporate network? How important is this route to their larger network? We're looking at everything we can on our side. So we're looking at how many people are on the flight. What are the load factors? Of course, I'm the only person that's happy. Our team, we're the only people that are happy when you get on a full plane out of Indy. I love it. I love a full fly. I'm like 100% full. Love it.
Yeah.
We're doing great. Everybody, good job. So load factors, and then we look at what is the average fare, and what's the possibility that the airline's making a lot of money on this flight, because that means that it's more sustainable for the airline. Sure, I don't want people to have to overpay for flights, but I also don't want that flight to go away because the airline's not making any money.
Yeah.
So it's quite a balance for us.
Talk to us about this transatlantic flight, Dublin. I know you were very involved. What's different, or is it the same approach as some of the domestic direct flights? And when did it launch? Sort of why, out of all the cities in Europe, did we land on Dublin? And I do know, I believe 4 or 5 years ago, you were instrumental in the Paris direct flight, which then got a little bit scuttled by COVID, right?
Yes.
So just enlighten us on both of those projects that I know you had a big hand in.
The Paris flight was a huge success, something that the airport had been working on for over 10 years. I got to work on sort of in that last cross over the finish line, and then got to really work on it when it came to sustaining the flight. Dublin, like Paris, they are both hubs for the respective airlines that are operating the flight. So Paris is a hub for Air France, who is a partner to Delta, which means Delta can feed passengers from Indianapolis into Paris, and then Air France you can stay in Paris, or you can get access the rest of the world through CDG, Charles de Gaulle, Paris Airport. So when we think about these long haul flights, which are very expensive to operate, we have to think about filling the plane not just with people going to the destination market, but with people who will use the destination market as an access point to other locations. That's when you have to, again, think about strategies. What airline? What are their hubs? Do they have an airplane?
Mm-hmm.
And what is our existing demand to that hub and to the places that they connect to? So Dublin has been in the conversation for years. I've been working on Dublin and Aer Lingus with Aer Lingus for 6 years.
Wow.
They have been interested in Indy, and things, change, and the economy changes and resources change, and sometimes you think you're close, and then all of a sudden the aircraft goes somewhere else, and then there's no flight, no matter how bad people want it, without a plane. So Dublin is a really important market, not only for Indianapolis. I mean, Eli Lilly has a massive investment in Ireland.
Mm.
That was really important to the conversation. Eli Lilly was very helpful in our conversations, and their public investments. Those are headlines that we share with the airlines. And then the Dublin Airport, Aer Lingus has a great network out of the Dublin Airport, so you can connect to 20 destinations beyond Dublin.
Yeah.
And what's really neat about Dublin is you pre-clear. So when you come home, you go through normal TSA, and then you go through customs. So you land in Indianapolis like a domestic passenger.
Oh, wow.
You just walk straight through the beautiful Civic Plaza. You get to experience whatever fun event the city is having, and then you're in your car and you're home.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
So when did the Dublin flight start? How frequently, like in a given week, average price point to go direct to Dublin?
Dublin flight started on May 3rd.
Okay.
It operates 4 days a week. Average price point, I think that's a great question. So they do have a proper first class cabin with lie flat seat, beautiful screens. I walked right past it when I got on the plane. But it looked great, and it looked really lovely. My husband and I went on the first flight.
Oh, very cool.
To Dublin. It was a really neat experience. But Aer Lingus has been a great partner. They've been very active in the community. They want to understand Indianapolis and what is important to people in not just Indianapolis, in central Indiana, and how they can align their brand with travelers here. They were here for St. Patrick's Day. We had some of their team in for the Indy 500. So they are all in. They've been great partners. They really want to market the route. They want this to be a long-term partnership.
That's great. Well, and then to maybe put a bit of a wrapper on the airport, because I think it's just fascinating. We are spoiled in that we do have, in my view, one of the best. I've not been to all of them. You've probably been to way more than me. But we have one of the best airports. It seems to annually get recognition and accolades and awards. It's clean. It's, efficient. It's a really pleasant experience. Talk to us about maybe some of the awards, just for those that don't know, that the Indianapolis International Airport has been winning. I feel like I think I read something recently, like for the 12th straight year. I mean, these aren't just like, oh, this has happened twice in the last 20 years. It seems to be almost like we're expected, to win these awards. And they're from some big, reputable Condé Nast, some of these large, organizations. So tell us a little bit about the recognition that our airport receives.
We have been recognized by Condé Nast. We've been recognized by TripAdvisor recently. J.D. Power, best medium-sized airport. The one that is the 13 years in a row, that is from Airports Council International. No other airport has won it 13 years in a row. It is a lot of pressure, but it's also something that we strive to maintain. Again, we serve our community, and we want to be the best airport on behalf of our community, because we have we've got the best city. So that should be reflected in the accolades of the airport. And so as long as the community and the city continues to see the airport as an asset and as something that's important to economic development, then we will continue to rise to that occasion and do what we need to do to serve central Indiana.
That's great. And then just recently, in addition to air service development, you now, part of your portfolio is overseeing concessions and airport experience. So how's that been the last 7-8 months?
It's a lot different in a great way. It's far more boots on the ground. What's happening in the restaurants, as opposed to this kind of long-term strategic thinking game. It's like, oh no, there's the grease.
Yeah.
That grease trap is overflowing. We need to fix that. But what's cool about it is all of that has to work together in order to be number one. And so I love being able to be part of sort of the full picture. And candidly, our team is incredible. I'm so grateful for them. Our especially the team on the concessions side, retail side, they have, forgotten more about retail and airports than I will ever learn. And so I've just been following their lead and grateful for their knowledge and grateful to them for inviting me on the team and figuring out a way for us to lead together.
Now, as an employee of the airport, do you get any perks or discounts of, hey, 30% off flights, free flights? Tell us kind of the secrets.
There's the burning question.
Okay, yeah. I want to know. I really don't know, so I'm curious.
No, I think it's a great question. We get asked that a lot. I get asked that a lot. And the answer is no.
Oh, really? Okay.
No flight benefits. We do have parking.
Okay.
We can park, which is nice.
Yeah, if you're gone for a week, that adds up.
Yeah, that can add up. You always know that you've got a spot. And we do get a small discount at some of the restaurants.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well,
the glamour is in serving the community, Dave.
That's right. Well, thank you for kind of providing a deep dive. Yeah. It's just fascinating, the work that I think a lot of people just take for granted, right? That the Indianapolis International Airport does on a daily basis. So thank you for your efforts. And I think as we wrap here, I want to talk a little bit about your community involvement, because I know you and you're somebody that isn't just, going to do your day job and then going home and hanging out. Like, you've really been intentional about getting involved with some, I call them extracurriculars, which is a great way to not only learn about the city and invest in yourself, but build a network beyond your day job. Yeah. And as I've learned, I think some of my civic involvement, it's opened doors and relationships, maybe even at times more than what I'm doing in my day job. So, you're vice chair of the International Center. We'd love to talk about that here in a minute. You're an alum of what I mentioned earlier, the James T. Morris series that the International Center hosts, which is a leadership development program. You're also an alum of the Mitch Daniels Leadership Fellowship and the Stanley K. Lacey series. So out of all of that civic involvement, is there, a specific experience that has really kind of served as a career accelerator or shaped you in a pretty profound way since you arrived in Indy, a decade ago?
I would say they all have.
Yeah.
A lot of men on that list. That's all right. They all did some great things. I think the city, so when you move to Indy, or I should say when you don't grow up here, you have, and you want to be involved, or your job is to sell the city like mine was and is, you got to figure it out on your own. So everything I know about this city, I learned as an adult. There was none of this like experiencing as a kid and kind of grew up watching my parents do X, Y, Z. Like, I didn't have that luxury. And so I actively pursued a lot of these programs to further engage, to further learn. And I'm lucky that really aligns well with the work that I do. If you're going to sell a city and you're going to market a city, I think the more genuine you are, the more people believe you in what you're trying to say and what you're trying to sell. And I think that's reflective of the genuineness of the Hoosier spirit.
Yeah.
So I'm proud that I've gotten those opportunities. I'm grateful to the airport for allowing me the time and the resources to do those things. I think the programs I've done are very different. I think the Morris series and the International Center is such a unique asset in our community. It's such an incredible asset in our community. It's really important to me that more people know about it. Yeah. The Morris series helped me understand. It helped give a qualitative and quantitative value to pausing and thinking, what are the different perspectives that are at this table? And how can I navigate this conversation respectfully And so that we all get to the end goal because we share the end goal. We just don't share the path to get to that end goal. And I think that's intuitive to people, but we forget.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful to the James T. Morris Leadership Series, to the International Center.
I mean, that was a springboard. You did the Morris Series before you were on the board of the International Center, right? So talk about, and for those that don't know, the International Center is such a jewel of our community. Maybe elaborate on why you chose to get more involved. I mean, it does dovetail well with the work you do at the airport, but the purpose that it serves in the community as well.
So I got involved, you're exactly right, because I was doing international work. And so it was important to us to understand the International Center. And when we travel internationally, or when we're meeting with airlines, international airlines, we need to be able to understand their perspective and where they're coming from, and the different cultures that people bring to a table, and how they negotiate, and what what might be important to those cultures, and vice versa. So the International Center can help prepare all of that. But at the end of the day, the International Center is enabling, what I like to say, the International is enabling thoughtful global business. They are also partners with some of the largest companies in the city and in the state who are recruiting international talent, and make coming to Indiana and coming to Indianapolis a little bit of a softer landing, not just for the executive or the person being recruited, but for their families, helping them navigate, how do you get a license here, and how would you buy a house? And those are hard enough things when you move from Texas, much less a different country. They are participating in delegations that different groups are going to, from the Colts to, they did a lot of work with the Holcomb administration, and continue to work with the IEDC. Indianapolis is a global city, and they are such an incredible ambassador. And a lot of times they kind of sit behind the camera and help orchestrate productive conversations. And in a world that moves so quickly, they are very intentional about inserting a very slight pause, considering the human element of business when we all come from such different places, and then we can all resume. And I'm grateful to them for that.
Yeah, that's one thing that stuck with me from the Morris series, was just the learning around cultural competencies and how we operate as a country. USA is very different from how Japan, operates, and how they show up at a negotiation. And so just kind of having that insight, it is an incredible resource that I believe Jim Morris and several other civic leaders helped to launch, over 50 years ago now. Well, Maggie, this has been a fascinating conversation. A lot more I could talk to you about. Maybe as a final question, what would be your best piece of advice for someone out there listening in their 20s or 30s?
I would say, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. I would say, and I heard Mark Miles say this once and it stuck with me, do what you say you're going to do. There's a lot of people who will make comments or promises, and they never send the email or the follow-up call, and you might be surprised what happens if you did. And then the last thing I'll say, which is something that's been very pertinent to me, is just never say never. Don't close. Don't do your best to not close too many doors. I never thought I'd live in Indiana. I never thought I'd be a stepmom. I never thought I'd be a yoga teacher. We didn't even get into that, but that's been an important part of my life. And I'm so great. I never thought I'd work in an airport and aviation. I mean, all these things felt really far away 20 years ago. And I am so grateful that they're not, that's what I get to do now.
Well, we're thrilled that you're a Hoosier by choice. Excited to see what the future holds. Hopefully we keep you in Indiana for a long, long time. And just thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of Indiana citizens, day in and day out, both at the airport and, in your civic involvement in the community. So excited to see what the future holds for you.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
What happens when a basketball superstar changes the course of an entire city? I'm Mickey Shuey, and in Beyond Clarkonomics, we tell the story of how Caitlin Clark's arrival to the Indiana Fever sparked more than just sold-out arenas. It's rewriting Indianapolis's long-term strategy for sports, downtown growth, and women's leadership. Listen at ibjpodcast.com or on your favorite podcast app.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.